Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now. Hello world, I'm Chris Pirillo, and you're watching another episode of CPU, which is short for Chris Pirillo. You decide what the U is short for, because you are the only U I care about. And just about the only Star Wars figure I care about is this one. Believe it or not, it's not Darth Vader. It's an AT-AT driver. This was the very first Star Wars figure I ever collected. Yeah, this one, right here in my hands. It's got sentimental value. If you've been watching me for any amount of time or have been following me over a period of time, you probably know that. But over the weekend, I had a chance to watch a movie called Plastic Galaxy. This was something that was only possible thanks to crowdfunding. Unfortunately, I didn't know it existed until after it was funded, but I absolutely would have been one to fund it. It's the story of Star Wars toys, and this disc happens to be a gift from Joe Tashi. It was on my wish list. Thanks again, Joe. It was an awesome movie. If you're anything like me and you grew up with Star Wars toys back when they were brand new, well, this is the movie for you, because it talks about how we weren't alone. And we thought we were. Everything I saw in this movie, or just about everything, really resonated at a level that I didn't think it would resonate. I even got Diana to watch it, and I didn't even have to prod her that much. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, my wife wanted to watch the movie on her own volition, and she's far from a geek. It was fascinating to see other collectors who feel the same way about the toys today as they did back then. And they're much like me. They've rekindled their passion for the things that they collected as a child. You gotta remember, things were different back in the day. There was scarcity, which is to say it was very, very, very insanely difficult to find the things that you wanted to collect. This Hammerhead figure was the last one I needed to complete my classic collection. I could never find them in stores, and even if I could find them in stores, I probably couldn't afford it, because I wasn't making money when I was a kid. So what you had to do to get the figures you wanted is trade. I kept most of my figures in decent condition, and I still have most of them right here. In fact, right before streaming this video, Diana held up one of the Han Solo figures and said, "Hey, I know this is Han Solo, but he reminds me a lot of Indiana Jones." She didn't know, and I remember the day I got this Bespin figure. I was with my grandparents. This would have been the thing I would have chosen to put in either my grandmother or grandfather's coffin. There's a lot of sentiment that's attached to a lot of these figures. Sorry. I need a moment. They're not just toys. They're memories. I'm going to talk about why this makes me happy. Because it reminded me of my childhood, and I had a happy childhood. And if you had a childhood anywhere near mine, you collected Star Wars figures. And the thing is, Star Wars figures were far more influential than most people give them credit for. They really re-energized the entire toy industry. Licensing, licensing, licensing. And it never ended, until it ended, after Return of the Jedi. But it came back! I started collecting Darth Vader stuff because someone gave me this particular Darth Vader figure, which is not AFA graded. This one, however, is AFA graded 75, a 12-back. Believe it or not, I used to have every single Star Wars figure as a kid, or at least the Star Wars figures that I knew of, except for two figures. This one, and this one. This particular figure is rare indeed. I ended up getting it the first weekend that Diana visited me in Seattle. I saw it in a collector's shop and I said, wait, should I get that? I've always wanted it. The first time I saw a blue snaggletooth, I had no idea it was even a part of a collection. But it was. It was never supposed to be produced. That's what makes it so rare. Sadly, I can't seem to find my real snaggletooth, the one that looked like this. And here's Yak Face, a figure that I had no idea even existed before the internet was around, because it wasn't released in the US. And before any of you collectors get jealous, this is a recard, that's a reproduction coin, but this is an original Yak Face figure. Or at least it should be. I don't want to take it out of the package because that would ruin the recard value, which isn't really valuable. But it looks cool. I should probably get this graded. Who do I send it to? I should probably go as far as to get the blue snaggletooth graded as well. That way I know it's real. But, as I said, I don't really know who I should be sending it to. I don't know if I can trust anybody with these figures. They're special to me, and some of them are very expensive. But that's the life of a collector. And if you happen to be a Star Wars figure collector and you were looking for a perfect documentary, this is it. Since I've done a fair amount of research, I can't necessarily say that I learned a lot of new things in this movie, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless. And yes, I am very well aware of Rancho Obi-Wan, and you should be too. I plan on visiting there one day in the future, I just don't know when. They started following me back on Twitter the other day. That's cool. I've never really been followed by a museum before, let alone a Star Wars museum. Star Wars is one of those things that's just never going to die. It's something that's going to be passed along from generation to generation. It's always got a place in my heart, and obviously will be in my family for generations to come. I hope. Thank you to everybody who was watching me live to let me know that I had dust on my shoulder. That's what happens when you pull things out of storage. I do hope that my Star Wars figures pass along to some other Star Wars fan in the family, whether that happens to be Jedi or someone else. This is a movie by the fans, for the fans, and I'll absolutely be keeping it in my collection. I kind of like doing movie reviews. I see a lot of movies. Not all of them are worth talking about, though. Now, you might be thinking, Chris, if this is a movie review, why were you talking about your Star Wars toy collection, or at least part of it? Well, because that's kind of the point of the movie. It made me feel like I was a part of a community, and I wanted to collect more. It's not an addiction, it's a passion. I keep telling myself that. Most of the figures that I still have in my collection are a bit beat up. Maybe at some point in the future, I'll end up getting a new collection of the classic figures, but that will be really expensive. I'll just call it an investment. So, in summary, if you were a Star Wars toy collector as a child, or you know someone who was, get this movie. May the Force be with you. But at this point, I'm going to leave everybody to their own devices.